Coming up on today's episode, WWE's NXT Japan plans have been ruined again. An ex-WWE star is debuting on AEW soon. Laurie recaps last night's episode of NXT, including the Dusty Classic final, and Luke takes us through the goings-on in last night's AEW Dynamite.
This is Nick Jackson of the Young Bucks. Please subscribe to WrestleTalk.
Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Hello and welcome to the WrestleTalk stacked news and stacked reviews. I'm Chopper Pete Quinnell. With all the fuss surrounding the Royal Rumble, Edge's return, and the events on Raw, it can be easy to forget there's a global war for wrestling territories going on all the time. But unfortunately for Triple H's global localization plans, rumors of an NXT Japan starting up might have taken a pretty significant blow. Japanese promotion DDT Pro Wrestling's parent company, Cyber Agent, which sounds like the most epic superhero of all time, announced late last night that they had agreed terms on the purchase of Pro Wrestling Noah, another Japanese promotion with a storied history in Japan. Now this may not seem all that significant, but according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, Pro Wrestling Noah was actually one of the promotions WWE were looking to purchase in order to kickstart NXT Japan. Now this may seem like a familiar story, as not so long ago, New Japan's parent company Bushiroad purchased Stardom, an all-women's promotion in Japan, which was a major blow to WWE at the time, as once again they were looking to use that to launch NXT Japan. So once again, WWE have come up short, and now their choices in terms of promotions to use to launch their globally localized brand in the land of the rising sun are getting thinner and thinner. At this point, we may never see an NXT Japan unless they decide to just poach a bunch of top names from other Japanese promotions and start their own brand from the ground up, which would end up costing them a lot more money in the beginning most likely, and it wouldn't exactly make them any friends in Japan, simply because of the moral code and honor that Japanese businesses tend to run by. Speaking of things that WWE can't do anymore, semi-segue, it's being reported that a former WWE star will be debuting for AEW in the near future. Luke Harper, Sin Cara, and The Ascension were all released from their WWE contracts on December 8th, forcing them into a 90-day no-compete clause. Or wouldn't you know it, those 90 days are nearly up. Harper, now going by Brodie Lee, is being reported by the Wrestling Observer newsletter to make his AEW debut on the March 18th episode of AEW Dynamite. The 90-day no-compete clause expires on March the 8th, but Meltzer goes on to say that he would make his debut on the episode emanating from Rochester, New York, as that is his hometown, and he's probably going to get a much bigger reaction. With it being previously reported that Marty Scurll was supposed to be the leader of the Dark Order, that mysterious figure that keeps being teased on Dynamite, perhaps that role could switch to Brodie Lee, and he could unveil himself as the big bad for once instead of following someone else's orders. Some of the feuds that could be lining up for Brodie Lee are quite lovely, as we've only really scratched the surface in terms of what we can see Lee do inside the ring, with that one really great Randy Orton match being the in-ring highlight of his WWE career so far. Kenny Omega versus Brodie Lee, Pac versus Brodie Lee. Maybe Lee could be a dominant force and take on both of the Young Bucks, including Nick Jackson, our new best friend. Thanks to Nick for recording the intro at the start of this episode, and thanks for getting the channel name right. Isn't that right, Sammy Guevara? And thank you to WrestleTalk fan Harrison Berry for getting that recorded for us. Would you like to see Brodie Lee on AEW Dynamite on March 18th? What role should he be taking in the company? Let me know down in the comments below, because I'll be replying to people from my computer after this video goes live. And now over to Laurie for the NXT recap. Hot tag.
Thank you for your support on Patreon, The Mountain, Matthew Dennis. It seems like we're getting Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic round 1 million for the North American title. Daddy gets to have a blood-covered cuddle with Goldie, and the Broserweights smoke the grizzled young vets to win the Dusty Cup Classic Tournament Cup thing. It's Unfakeador here with your NXT recap, and an aggressive Finn Balor gets some revenge on Trent Seven for helping out Johnny Gargano at Worlds Collide to kick off this week's episode. We're told that on Tuesday, Trent was attacked in a parking lot, choked with a car door, and told that Balor works Wednesdays. Tuesdays, he works at Arby's. He was on his way back from a shift probably. Now Trent takes very little of this match, and this is all about the malicious Prince asserting his dominance and looking strong going into TakeOver Portland and that match with Johnny Gargano. Matt Riddle then tells Kathy Kelly that the Broserweights are going to win the Dusty Classic and that Pete Dunne's eyes are full of love and care. But if you stare too long, you'll see deep black pits and the true meaning of despair, otherwise known as Birmingham. And your sports teams suck. This is classic heel work from me. Classic. Shotzi Blackheart then trundles ringward in a tiny little tank to run over Deonna Purrazzo, who looked utterly panzer against the onslaught from the green-haired general. Shotzi finally picks up a win in NXT, and I can see her becoming a centerpiece of the division if there's a big shake-up post-Portland. Keith Lee victoriously struts his way between the ropes to show off his shiny new North American title and puts himself over as both limitless and a prophecy ender. But he's interrupted by sex vampire and Hot Topic shopper Damian Priest, who in turn is interrupted by Dominik Dijakovic, both of whom want a shot at the champ. An impromptu match is then set up as Lee sneaks off to the back, where yet again NXT's division of flying giants defy physics. Dijak manages to clutch out the win with Feast Your Eyes after kicking out of a spine-severing avalanche reverse Rana. We then find out that Daddy's home and he's got himself a pipe. And all he needs now is some comfy slippers and a dressing gown, and he completes the Hugh Hefner look. It's not actually that sort of pipe, it's one for a whipping, and he sets out to thrash some sense into the Undisputed Era. Bobby, Kyle and Roddy are all introduced to Rod, and they are downed outside before Ciampa heads off to the ring to call out Adam Cole. Now Cole arrives, as does Big Willie Riggs, who says Adam has already signed a contract for Portland and doesn't care who he faces. Cole, in a show of bravado, then takes the contract to the ring and tries to cheap shot Ciampa before actually getting himself dumped through a table. So, well done, Cole. Great plan, my friend. Ciampa then signs the contract in pen and then blood, making it doubly legally binding or void. One of the two. He then cuddles Goldie over Adam Cole as the great custody battle for the leather Dominic continues. Tegan Nox finally gets her hands on Dakota Kai after that. I mean, I say finally, it's been basically a week since she's been back. Now, Kai keeps trying to hit her with every weapon known to man during this match, but either misses or is stopped by Rent-A-Friend Candice LeRae. Nox then nicks a knee brace, bonks Kai's noggin, and then hits the shiniest wizard for the win, meaning this might be the end of the feud after, I guess, Kai's heel turn turned out to be thoroughly underwhelming, and people didn't really buy into it or like it. The main event saw the Broserweights beat out the grizzled young veterans to win the Dusty Cup in a top-tier tag team matchup. The vets got plenty of time to shine, and they get to take all of those kudos back to NXT UK to, I guess, be inevitably forgotten about. Meanwhile, Dunne and Riddle, looking strong as ever, go on to face the Undisputed Era at Portland. A prize which wasn't mentioned until this week, but would have just made the whole tournament feel, I don't know, more important and a little bit nonsensical because the Undisputed Era are in the tournament, and then why would they be doing that to win a title shot against themselves? And then Brock Lesnar was in the Rumble, so I guess anything goes these days. Long story short though, it was a great match and a great show that finally sets in stone a lot of what we should expect out of TakeOver Portland, meaning we're past the narrative roadblock of Worlds Collide and back on the straight and narrow. Now over to Luke for a rundown of AEW.
Thanks for that developmental review there, Fakador. But it's now time to get elite as I review the 29th of January 2020 edition of AEW Dynamite in about 4 minutes. Ring that bell. The show opened with Jon Moxley getting a hero's welcome from his Ohio crowd, who called out his Revolution target, Chris Jericho. Le Champion answered to call Moxley a Jack Sparrow wannabe. Jon Moxley to WrestleMania and brought out Inner Circle to back him up. But he told Moxley it wasn't a 5-on-1 fight, but a 10-on-1, as Santana and Ortiz brought out some street thugs from the Bronx. Never tell Mox the odds, and he decided to fight them anyway, laying out Ortiz with a paradigm shift before Atlas Security broke it all up. This was a fun way to kick off the show. After meeting with the Bunny in a slaughterhouse to pay them off, the Butcher and Blade took on the Young Bucks in a really good match, which saw the Bucks pick up the win with the Meltzer driver. Butcher and Blade attacked them after the match and until Kenny Omega ran down to make the save. Hangman Page also came down, but took his time so he didn't spill his drink. He hit the buckshot on Blade, grabbed his drink and walked away. Later in the show, the Bucks cut a promo about climbing the ladder of the tag division, and Hangman Page gave them championship nameplates of their own as they don't have belts to put them on. I love this story so much, and it's gonna kick into high gear next week as the Bucks are teaming with Page and Omega to take on Butcher, Blade, and the Lucha Brothers. I seriously cannot wait. Nyla Rose quickly beat Big Swole to become the #1 contender to Riho in a match that was mostly ad break and a bit slow. And Cody beat Kip Sabian in a match that had so many interference spots and gaga you'd think Vince Russo was booking the show. Hold on, is Vince Russo booking this show? There are a lot of spooky tag teams. Penelope Ford.
That is a beautiful name, Penelope.
Jumped in a lot. Arn Anderson got ejected for arguing with the referee, and Joey Janela blocked a kiss between Sabian and Ford. It was all a bit too wacky for me, but the crowd loved it. Cody hit 3 crossroads for the win and did his best to put over Sabian in defeat, which I would argue he accomplished. Britt Baker continued her heel turn this week by targeting Jim Ross for cutting her off last week. This was great stuff from Baker, who pointed out that JR is being paid a lot to get names wrong, and she's there every week, which is more than you can say for Riho. And the great thing about this promo work is that Baker isn't wrong. She was pushed as the division's top star. Riho is never on Dynamite, and JR on this very episode of the show got MJF's name wrong. She then got local town heat with some local town sports references. Sports. SCU beat Hybrid 2 in a decent little to-do. I'm a poet, and I didn't even know I was rhyming those words. But it happened anyway. And Dark Order cut a promo saying they were coming after Christopher Daniels and his family and don't care what order they do it in. And speaking of great work, the Bastard Pack cut a fabulous promo on both Moxley and Omega, saying he was coming for Kenny's blood next week. Low-key, this was my favorite thing on the show. And the main event saw Chris Jericho pick up the win for Inner Circle when they beat Darby Allin and Private Party. This was a lot of fun and saw Jericho continue to put the spotlight on younger guys like Allin, Quen, and Cassidy, creating spots for them to show him up and get near falls on him. He eventually hit the Judas effect for the win, and Inner Circle beat up the babyfaces after the match for Moxley to make the save with a baseball bat. So that was this week's AEW Dynamite in about 4 minutes. Vote in the poll above my head to let me know what you thought of the show using these options on screen. This was a solid episode of AEW Dynamite. The in-ring action was good, the promo work was excellent, and most of the storylines were furthered. Solid stuff. This week's episode of Dynamite is a high 3 out of 5, middle of the roads. What was the real reason Charlotte Flair won the Royal Rumble? I think you probably all know the answer, but click the video on screen to find out regardless. Thank you for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon pledge hammers, some of which you can see scrolling their way into my stomach. I've been Luke Owen, and that was wrestling.